Hola a toda la audiencia de Criptonoticias. Seguimos aquí en Trustless by Design, el evento de Trezor, en el cual lanzaron su hardware wallet. Y estamos aquí con Matthijs Schaak. I pronounce it similar?
Yeah, it's good. Don't worry.
How are you, Matthijs?
Good. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm good. Congratulations on the launch. It was... I'm going to admit, I was expecting this decision of implementing the hardware, the chip, because I interviewed Jan from Tropic Square in BTC Prague a month ago, and he told me like, I cannot tell, I cannot speak from the perspective of Trezor, but I was expecting it. How was the decision to implement this open source chip?
So the story goes that we basically tried to implement closed source secure element in the past, as you might have talked with Tomáš, the CTO.
Yeah.
Has he told you the story?
No, not that much, but go ahead.
Okay, I will go ahead. So we tried to actually get a secure element. It was closed source. We signed an NDA. And shortly after, we realized there's a hole. We found a vulnerability. And because of the NDA, we could not really talk to anybody about this, not even to the competitors that were using it and were actually shaming us for not using secure elements.
No.
But they were not aware of this very obvious way how we could extract the private keys from this secure chip. And then it led to the creation of the company, because we realized the NDAs and the obscurity is not the way, it's not the correct way. And therefore, the founders of Trezor, the original founders, also started the company called Tropic Square, which, by the way, the name Tropic stands for, it's a abbreviation of truly open IC. So that's why Tropic.
Okay.
And yeah, so since it has the same founders, both Trezor and Tropic, the goal was always there, to put it into hardware wallets as soon as we have it. And it's so aligned that Trezor Safe 7 came out in R&D on the same or similar timeline that we would be able to implement Tropic Square, and we are super happy it all kind of clicked in the end together.
Yeah,
but I mean, it was race, of course, all the way to the sort of finish, because, hardware is hard, and like to connect those timelines, it was quite something.
I wanted to ask, because we have already spoke broadly about the new launch, about the new hardware wallet, but I wanted to dig deeper in what you think of the current hardware wallet landscape, because it has grown a lot, and now you have several competitors. In a few years back, it was mainly only Ledger, but
Correct.
Lately there has a great number of companies arising. And how do you perceive this growing trend of launching not only like a centralized, for give it a name, hardware wallets, but also do-it-yourself hardware wallets? What do you think about this?
So I would say, to begin with, competition is great, because ultimately the customer wins a better product, because competitors tend to compete, obviously. They will want to bring better features, and it sort of stack on top of each other, and ultimately leads to better experiences, better products, better security, better privacy, and all that. So I think that's good for the industry. In general, I would say we are not as much against that being said, we are not as much in the business of, I think, competing just against Ledger and against the others. But I think all of us should actually compete against ETFs, big custodians, exchanges, all that stuff. Because that's like much bigger addressable market. The hardware wallets is still kind of a niche from that perspective.
So how do you compete with those players? Because it's a different play field, no?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you basically, again, compete with better product. Like we with product that is really easy to use, user-friendly, accessible in all possible ways. And I think today what we are trying to do is exactly this, right? So it's moving from a geeky device that would be understood by maybe an engineers or PhDs in cryptography to something that it's really understood by even mainstream consumer, right?
So the strategy right now for Trezor is convenience and usability, like trying to develop the product that could be used by any grandmother around there, no?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it has always been the strategy. Actually, I can actually even start with how the whole hardware wallet industry started by us building the first ever hardware wallet. Because at the same time, we also built the BIP39, which is the format or the standard how you back up your private keys, right? So if you think about it. The seed phrase. It was invented by us actually, and it's an open source, and that's why so many companies implemented it. And it has been a actually usability feature, right? Because private keys, think long Wi-Fi password, hard to remember, hard to manage, and then the seed phrase make it into human readable, easy to understand format. So Trezor has always been on this mission to make it more user-friendly, but I think we are basically with every release, every hardware wallet that we built, it's getting better and better.
Okay, and what about this is standard, the seed phrase, although it is widely used and it is a standard, almost everybody use it. Although there are some companies that are experimenting with different formats, or like a Moon wallet, they don't use seed phrases, for example. Do you foresee this is going to change in the future, given the fact that it's some kind of a pain point for people to know how to store safely the seeds?
Yeah, I believe there's definitely ways to improve on that experience as well, quite frankly. So we are actually already working on projects and features that would fix that problem. I cannot unfortunately be specific today, but it's still a bit of a secret.
In the future, you can share it with us.
Yeah, exactly. I would be super happy to do so. But I agree. The disadvantage of the seed phrases is it's prone to phishing, right? Like if uneducated users could fall for phishing by giving the words to somebody and not really realizing, oh, now I actually lose my keys and therefore Bitcoin or crypto. So I agree. There are ways to make that experience better.
Okay. You mentioned ETFs, and probably you also had in mind other custodial solutions that hardware wallets must compete against. Yes. No,
absolutely.
But at the same time, this provides their proper security measure. I am referring to the growing trend of physical attacks in the industry, which doing self-custody for most of the people could be also a risk. Having their life savings in their house in a hardware wallet could also put them in danger and their families. What do you think about this happening, and how can the hardware wallets industry fight this somehow? Can they?
I think they do, and we have this kind of principle in the company, and we say it's like an equation that I sometimes use in presentations, and it is that self-custody equals security multiplied by privacy multiplied by usability. So we already talked about the usability part, but actually in this equation, if you take away the privacy, then it falls apart and you don't have a proper self-custody. And that's why privacy is so extremely important in the self-custody space, because exactly you don't really want to know or you don't really want to tell others that you have, X amount. Yeah. Exactly. So because of these reasons, and therefore we as a company protect our users by, for example, not storing any customer data, and we actually delete it after some time from when you make an order with us. We are legally required to hold it for some time, which I believe is I think 90 days, and then we actually delete everything, and that way we protect the users, so nobody can really steal this data from us, for example, etc. And it also comes to some like hygiene of not really talking about or boasting about how much you have, etc.
Yeah, definitely. Which is on the client side. No, you cannot do anything about it.
Exactly. Well, we can educate people, I think, right? So and kind of remind, as we do now, is kind of remind everybody, don't do that.
Definitely. And in the privacy tech side, like what are you implementing or planning to implement to improve privacy in the hardware wallets in Trezors? Because there is also this thing going on after the Samurai wallet and Tornado Cash being prosecuted and all of this, that most of wallets providers are kind of scared to implement privacy features. I don't know if you are like share this kind of feeling, or do you think that privacy is something that must be implemented as well in the technology in the wallets?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a quite important part of it. And for example, in our Trezor suite, we have integration of Tor, so you can actually turn it on by default, and even when you just turn on the application and instantly connect through the Tor network. So that's one way how we protect the users from the privacy perspective. Also, we are really not big on product data in general. So you can give us consent, and we would anonymously get some information around basic usage metrics within the application, because obviously that helps us tremendously to make the product better. But we don't know anything about, we don't know who you are, we don't know what Trezor you use and stuff like that, right? Like we don't know the specifics. We know only very sort of statistical kind of data.
Yeah.
But we cannot really connect a person to a wallet or anything like that. We don't have any accounts, so that's quite important.
And what about implemented like Bitcoin privacy tech? I am referring to silent payments, perhaps, or other measures or other strategies for improving, like obscures the traceability of transactions.
Yeah. So actually, after as you mentioned, the Samurai or this case, so we had some privacy feature on that side, but we actually discontinued it because of the precedents. So.
Okay. I get it. Yeah, it's a like risky situation in which you don't know how the administration is going to change in the future, and it's
Correct.
kind of threatening, I guess. But do you still believe that it's something that the industry must strive towards, like work for implementing more privacy features?
I think so. I think it's like a freedom right, or how to say, like a human right to have some level of privacy. On the extreme other side of the spectrum, like CBDCs or something like this, right? So it's the extreme case. And I mean, I have even like some of my own experience if like traveling to countries where privacy is really not, taking as a basic human right. And it's pretty scary and uncomfortable as a normal person, that doesn't have anything to hide, but so I think we should be quite careful about this. And by the way, maybe let me tie it back to actually the topic I was talking about in today's keynote, which was the history of the country and the role of the communism here. Mm-hmm. Because actually there was so much sort of oppression from the party and this kind of like a secret police. It was like a standard. So you would think, for example, there were so many stories of people, drinking in a bar, and they would say something bad about the party, and there would be these policemen like hidden, pretending they're having good time with you or whatever, and then you would get imprisoned or something just because you said, well, you don't like the regime or something like that, right? So I think also from these experiences, we as a Czech people are kind of quite careful about our privacy standards, and that's I think why also we strive to deliver that experience into our products.
One of the things I loved about Czech history is this parallelní polis situation in which you manage to protect culture, like implementing, like sharing books, like writing. Can you tell us a little bit more about that story, about how they managed to protect education and philosophy and like in a subculture way?
You mean in the history? Yeah. So, like during, for example, the communist era, you would have like people that would spread information in some hidden ways, right? Like you would have artists that would, for example, sing songs that are about, I don't know, like a evil fairy tale story, but only sort of the smart people, or like the people outside of the regime would understand it's actually criticizing the regime.
It's like a stenography.
Yeah, exactly. So those were the normal or the common sort of how to say, like a population of those feelings toward the like establishment and toward the regime at the time. But of course also, people were imprisoned, and I mean everybody still remembers it here. Like we all have our grandparents and parents who lived there, and grandparents who really suffered through this because they really lived through the communism. It was pretty horrible era for the country.
Do you believe that's the reason why the Czech people is more Bitcoiner?
I really do. I really do. Like the so-called monetary reform in the 1953 I talked about today is the prime example why there's still a huge mistrust in the government and in the establishment in general. And I think that's why there are so many Bitcoiners. I mean, we have my favorite example is we have one YouTuber, like a Bitcoiner YouTuber. It's like mainly about Bitcoin, and this person has more than 100,000 subscribers in a tiny country, right? Like only of 10 million people. So, like it's
that
pretty big
says a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It says a lot, exactly.
How do you foresee the hardware wallet industry unfolding in the next 5 years with all this, I don't know, governmental adoption, the ETFs, and all the like this push for custodial solutions?
Yeah.
Do you see that? How the hardware wallets how self-custody is going to win the battle here?
Yeah, I like how you reframed the question. How are we going to win? So I think it's a double-edged sword, I like to say, because on one side, it's bringing a lot of attention to Bitcoin, and more people are coming, and that's great for, I think, Bitcoin, and for more people caring for what Bitcoin stands for. On the other side, if it's driven by simple institutions and ETFs and funds buying more Bitcoin and creating financial products that are no longer Bitcoin itself, it's a kind of pity, right? Definitely from our perspective. But again, I would say free market in the sense that if we want to win, we have to compete with really good experiences, really good products that people want to use, that are affordable or accessible, let's put it that way. And that's what we are trying to do. But like as for my preparation for this specific story that I was trying to tell today during the keynote, I was doing a lot of research on how is the world actually looking today in terms of what happened here in 53 with the monetary reform, and which destroyed people's savings because simply they printed a new currency. There was some horrible exchange rate for the new currency, and most people lost like more than 90% of everything they owned. And I asked myself the question, how is the world looking today? Is it still a problem, or has this been solved? And actually it's crazy, but there are so many cases even these days, right? In the last 100 years, I checked how many banks, for example, went out of business, and it's dozens of thousands. It's not even it's not even hundreds. It's dozens. It was like 20 to 30,000 of banks globally went out of business, and it's like, wow. So probably a lot of people were sort of impacted by this, right? Then you have, unfortunately, armed conflicts that are, again, I calculated like 20 countries fighting each other, and other 25 that are fighting internally or some internal disarrays. I mean, that's kind of horrifying because, like, you know what's happening, for example, in Ukraine. Like, we didn't really. I mean, I could not imagine a couple of years ago this would be the case. There will be an actual war in Europe, right? So and it's pretty scary because it's just less than 100 years when there was like a World War II and all over the place.
And do you think that this is going to push people into self-custody?
I believe it should. And sorry, maybe I didn't answer the question. I started all over the place. But I think it should. My reasoning for this, it should. They should consider it and be serious about it. Because I mean, I use bank, of course. I have a bank account, of course. But for like long-term storage, store of value, store of wealth, I think self-custody is really the way, and Bitcoin is the way, of course.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, Matej.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.